Welcome to Take a Side, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, get in on the action and pick our winners. I'm Jacob Polachek, and we've got a great show for you today. It's been a crazy week from the NBA's protest to the MLB's wildcard race. With a historic week in sports that saw numerous athletes from around the globe go on strike in response to the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we'll be talking about all of that and more. But before we do, For those joining us for the first time, I want you to get on your phones, download the Sided Debates app, and get in on the action. At the end of each week, we'll take your votes and crown a winner. For our first debate today, I'm joined by Emma House and Max McElroy, and they'll be debating their picks to win the Big 12 Conference. Make sure to get on Sided and take your own side before this debate expires. Assuming the college football season goes as planned, who is your pick to win the Big 12 Conference?
Well, great to be back. It's been a long time. I think for me, this is just a no-brainer for me. Kansas, obviously.
Obviously.
Bias aside, I genuinely think Texas will win the Big 12. And I think a big reason for that is just stability with the quarterback. So Sam Ehlinger was actually put in the Heisman vote preseason of last year, and then he's in it again this year. He returns for the third year as a starter, and I think unarguably he is the best quarterback in the Big 12. And in a league like that, with surrounded by just offensive weapons, I think having the best quarterback will really be able to, get them finally to the promised land that they've been wanting for so long. So.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to go with Oklahoma for this one. They're just on fire recently. Nobody can deny it. Their coach, Lincoln Riley, is going into his fourth season with a record of 36-6. I don't think he plans on stopping anytime soon. The former coach, Bob Stoops, kind of set up that great program for him, and I think Lincoln Riley is running away with it, but also making it his own and kind of shaping it to how he wants. And, they've obviously have all the wins to kind of show that. So they've had 11 or 13 Big 12 conference titles. The last 3 were with Lincoln Riley. And he's a former quarterback from Texas Tech. He knows how to play in the Big 12. He knows how to coach in the Big 12. And he knows how to win. So I think it's just kind of a no-brainer. The Sooners are going for it.
Yeah, it's always tough to pick against Oklahoma. However, this year, there's just a couple things with Oklahoma that I'm not sure about. So for one, what's the quarterback situation in Oklahoma like? Because each year they've had great quarterbacks, but this is the first year where it kind of seems like it's an unknown. There's no transfer quarterback or anything like that. So. Yeah,
they are still deciding a quarterback. Nobody really knows what's going on. Lincoln Riley has a plan, I guess, and Sooners fans are kind of hoping he picks the right one. He's got 2 great candidates, but it's kind of just when is he going to announce it, especially with the season starting so soon and still nobody's announced. But
yeah, I know they had a great recruit in Spencer Radler. I know he was coming in and everyone was excited about him, but he didn't really get to play very much, and so I think that'll be really interesting. And then another thing with Oklahoma that I have thought about is who's going to be their big wide receivers. They had Hollywood Brown for 2 years. They had CeeDee Lamb for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And so I just am curious to see how that offense can function without those big names.
Yeah, I do know that they have a couple of good 4-star recruits. One of them is a wide receiver, but still I think everything's up in the air too. I think this season should definitely have a little asterisk next to it because nobody really knows what's going on. Who would have thought that we were going to be in a pandemic? But I think they're doing the best with what they have and with the kind of recruiting that they can get.
Yeah, it's such a weird time. And since everything's weird, I bet Texas probably will win the Big 12 now. Who would have thought that would happen? In all seriousness, with Texas though, they returned 9 defensive starters, and I don't know, especially in a season where you didn't have a lot of camp time and you didn't have a lot of time where the players could get together, having that structure and consistency of 9 players on defense coming back, I just think will just be huge for the team. And I think in a league with Oklahoma, they have a lot of different offensive weapons from last year to this year. How is that going to relate to a defense that has almost everyone back?
Yeah, it'll definitely be a toss-up, I think, and people are just going to be kind of doing what they can. And I think especially as teams possibly get coronavirus or get sick with the flu or whatever, I think that it's going to definitely put a hinder on the season, and it should be really interesting to see who continues to play. Like, are we going to, if one team is out, is the whole
Right.
Big 12 over, or are we just going to continue without them?
Yeah.
So,
And I don't know about you. I'm just glad the Big 12 is playing football this year. Hopefully
Me
everyone
too.
is safe and everyone stays healthy.
Yeah.
We're going to cut to break. When we come back, we'll see you again soon.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Welcome back to Take a Side. For our next round, I'm here with Jack McGar for our lightning round. For this round, Jack will answer as many sided questions as possible in the allotted time. Jack, are you ready?
Hit me with them.
First off, San Diego Padres general manager AJ Preller should be named GM of the year. Agree or disagree? The Padres are currently 22-15, good for second in the NL West behind only the LA Dodgers and first in the NL wildcard race. Jack, do you agree or disagree that Padres GM AJ Preller is the MLB's GM of the year?
I have to agree with it. I mean, I don't think anyone expected the Padres to really be even in contention for a playoff spot, let alone already standing for a wild card spot. And with the move that they got Clevenger just now before the trade deadline, I think really it's hard to argue against him for GM of the year. So.
Next up, do you agree or disagree that if Wayne Gretzky could get traded, anybody could get traded? In August of 1988, after leading the Edmonton Oilers to 4 Stanley Cup championships, Wayne Gretzky, widely considered the greatest hockey player of all time, was traded to the LA Kings for 3 players, $15 million in cash, and a first-round draft pick. What do you think? Do you agree with the sentiment that if Wayne Gretzky could get traded, then anyone can?
I mean, I don't think anyone can be traded. I think there's a point in time where people need to be traded because either they age or maybe injuries or something like that. There are players that really mean a lot to some franchises, such as Wayne Gretzky himself. And I think his time had come at that point. So I think really there are players that shouldn't get traded, but I think there are players that can get untouched.
Our next question is off the topic of sports. Do you believe that Earth has ever been visited by aliens?
I'm a big believer in aliens. I do think there is life outside of this Earth, so I do think at some point in our history there have been aliens that have visited, but can't tell you when or what they did, but I do believe that they visited at some point.
Next up, we're on the topic of football. After being cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars, running back Leonard Fournette is one of the most highly coveted players in the free agent market. Should the newly relocated Las Vegas Raiders make a go at signing the veteran running back?
I mean, it makes sense in a way. I mean, they do have Josh Jacobs as the #1 running back, and he should stay that way. But Leonard Fournette would be a great backup if they can get him for cheap. If he's asking for money, then I don't think it's a good signing. But if they get him for cheap, I think he'd be a great #2.
On the topic of the Jaguars, with their release of Leonard Fournette, are the Jaguars prepping for an eventual move, or are they just rebuilding?
I think they're just rebuilding. I know that they could move because of their market, but I think they're just rebuilding because they really had nothing to fight for with their current roster, and I think they're going to try to make some moves in free agency and the draft to try to rebuild that roster and get back to playoff contention.
Now, continuing with the trend of running backs, you have the first pick in your fantasy football draft. Who are you taking? Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, or someone else?
I would say Christian McCaffrey just because he doubles as a running back and a wide receiver. He can really do it all for you in fantasy. He's going to put up monster numbers every week. I could also see Patrick Mahomes going as a #1 pick type deal just because of what he provides on the point value. But I would say Christian McCaffrey for me.
Well, that's all the time we have for our lightning round today. Jack, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Now, for our final debate of the day, I'm here with Jerome Sweeney and Marina Saver to talk MLB. With a shortened season, the MLB has added 3 additional wildcard playoff spots to each league. Starting us off with the American League and moving on to the National League, who is your pick to make the MLB playoffs as the number 8 seed? Let's start with Jerome.
My pick for the American League starting there is the Minnesota Twins. Obviously, the Minnesota Twins were, at the start of the season, if it was a 162-game season, they were the favorite in the Central. Hands down, they are coming off of a home run record-breaking season. Their offense is pretty much identical to last year. Their team was similar to last year's playoff run team. Unfortunately for them, they haven't won a playoff game in 16 years. So a lot of fans were hopeful. It's finally their year. The pitching rotation will come together. They'll stay healthy. None of that's happened at all. Their batting average is nowhere close to what it was last year. Their power numbers are way down. Their starting pitchers' ERAs, Barrios and Odorizzi, are both above 4.5 ERAs, which is just abysmal. But the team has hope because of 3 major pieces. They have Nelson Cruz right now, who's right in the heat of the American League MVP race, who's an ageless wonder is what he is. I mean, I don't know how he's still putting up that power and that average at age 40. Kenta Maeda might be the best trade in Minnesota sports history if he can maintain his Cy Young, stay up in the top 2 in the Cy Young race. And then the best story in all of baseball is Randy Dobnak, who spent last spring training of 2019 as an Uber driver, and now he's leading the American League Rookie of the Year race for the Twins. And I think he's 5-1 right now, and he has a 1.73 ERA, which is just incredible. It's just an incredible number.
Yeah, I mean, the Twins are still, I think, a great team, and you talk about Minnesota fans having hope. I think they can still have hope.
Yeah, right.
In my opinion, I don't think the Twins will fall to number 8. I think that number 7 wildcard spot, that seed will go to an AL Central team because that top 3 is so competitive. And even if the Twins don't manage to finish first or second in the division, they got to get Donaldson healthy. They got to get back hitting home runs like they were last season. But I just don't see another third place team having a better record than them to knock them down to that number 8 team. So I don't think the Twins look like a team that is going to need to squeak into the playoffs as that number 8, which for me, that team would be the Toronto Blue Jays. Going into the trade deadline, which San Diego Padres absolutely won, by the way, but going into the trade deadline, I was expecting the Blue Jays to be buyers, especially for pitching, and that's exactly what they did. They picked up Taijuan Walker, Robbie Ray, which hopefully Robbie Ray can do more for them than he did for the Diamondbacks this season, but still a historically great pitcher, a great young team that would otherwise be a non-contender that now has the opportunity to contend for a playoff berth. And what's so great about these first rounds is in the playoffs is that they're only 3-game series.
Right.
Anything can happen in a 3-game series.
Any
So
team
not
can win.
exactly. So not only do I think the Blue Jays are a great young team, 54 home runs on the season, which is the second most in the American League. I really do think that not only will they kind of sneak into the playoffs as an 8, but I think they're a team that potential Cinderella story in the playoffs. I absolutely could see them making a run. I love them. Vlad Jr., they got to get Bichette healthy coming back. But I don't know. And now that they've added a little bit more pitching, which hopefully will be good for them, I just really think they can do it.
I think the best, most underrated player in the American League East this season has been Randall Grichuk.
Absolutely.
I think no one talks about him, and he has quietly had the best offensive season in arguably the American League, maybe the American League, and just no one talks about him.
Yeah, and Teoscar Hernandez, too,
Yep,
leads the team in home runs, and you never hear about him either. So I just think the Blue Jays are a phenomenal team. I really think that they're going to squeak in there as the 8. I don't think the Twins will fall that low. But, yeah, it's going to be an exciting race for sure.
Their team ERA is absolutely – it's under 4. So, that's, their pitching is doing good. And then with the additions of all their pickups yesterday at the trade deadline, I think they're going to be – very scary come October.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, let's throw it over to the National League. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that race.
So, like I said before, it's a 60-game season. So, obviously, if it's 162 games, the Miami Marlins have no chance. It's a rebuilding year, right?
Right.
But because at the start of the season, they missed 10 days for the pandemic, they were really hot when they came back. So now they find themselves at 15-15, and they are in second place, holding down, I think, the 6th seed right now in the National League playoffs. It's looking like they could legitimately be in the playoffs for the first time since 2003 here because of the new playoff format and the pandemic. They're making good trades. Yesterday, Starling Marte from the Arizona Diamondbacks, they got him for Not enough, to be honest with you. Not enough. And I mean, but it comes with the cost because Jonathan VR was their best hitter throughout the course of the season. But Starling Marte is a stud, and it's going to be ridiculous to see them in a playoff spot if they get there.
I agree. I mean, they're definitely going for it, and so I will give them credit for that. But I just truly believe that they're going to get bumped. I mean, you can't make the playoffs when your best player is your manager. I mean, like maybe Starling Marte now, but the thing with the Marlins is that they're being carried by young pitching right now. They don't have a way around that. They didn't really, I mean, that's just what it is. But
what I really like about that team is Miguel Rojas. 31 years old, came out of nowhere, and he's been the spark that they kind of, they needed on their team. He's hitting over, in his 15 games, he's hitting .344. I mean, he's been their best hitter I'm glad that he's finally getting his chance, but I mean, they need more hitting. Their pitching's fine, but they need hopefully Starling Marte can get them there, because if he has a tear towards these last 15 to 20 games of the season, and then he goes off in the playoffs, he's going to get paid a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think their pitching is it's just too young. You can make a playoff push with young hitting, absolutely, which is what I think the Blue Jays are doing. And I think young hitting is the reason why the Orioles aren't the worst team in the league right now, is because they have some young hitters that have really stepped up. But I think the Marlins, their pitching is too young. You can't make a push with that. Their bullpen is not lights out. Offensively, they don't hit home runs, and the games that they do manage to win, they barely win. I just don't think they really have enough going for them other than being the team with the most one-run seasons in the league right now.
Right.
So for me, I'm going to say that I think the Reds have the chance to make that 8th spot. And what the Reds have going for them, and I'll be very candid, both the Reds and the Marlins are dealing with a negative run differential right now.
Yep.
And the Marlins, like I just said, they barely win the games that they do, and that is proven by a negative run differential. But with the Reds, what they have that I think the Marlins don't is a genuinely good team of good players. They're built to get hot. They have the best 3-man rotation in the league with Bauer, Gray, and Castillo. I don't know. They have so many good players that just need to wake up. I mean, Eugenio Suarez last season had 50 home runs, hit over 300. And you don't talk about Suarez when you talk about home run giants. You don't. You talk Harper, you talk Stanton, you talk Judge. No, Alonso even. You just don't bring up Suarez. So I think that alone makes him one of the most underrated players, not only in the division, but in the whole National League, maybe the whole MLB as a whole. So if they can get him going, Moustakas is not what they paid for. Castellanos started hot, and he still leads the team in home runs, but he's cooled off a little bit. Votto can be a difference maker if they can get him going. Jesse Winker is playing out of his mind, so he just needs the rest of his team to join him. Again, we talked about their pitching. They have good players that haven't done anything. And I remember going into the postseason, we were talking about the Reds winning that AL Central, or that NL Central, excuse me. And we were saying also that the NL Central was going to be the division that was the most competitive with itself. And you haven't really seen that. It's actually been the AL Central, I think. So I don't know. Bottom line, the Reds are a team that is built to get hot, that's built to push themselves back up into that 8th spot. And the Marlins don't have going for them what the Reds have going for them. They barely win the games that they do win, and I just think they're not built for it.
Do you think Trevor Bauer wins the NL Cy Young?
I don't know. I mean, he's always got to be up there. You always have to look with DeGrom. I mean, last night he didn't pitch super well, but I think he's always in that race. And I think still at the midpoint of the season, it's a little bit too early to tell. I definitely think he's up in that race for contention, though.
Good.
Yeah.
Back over to Jacob now.
Well, that's just about all the time we have for today. Before we go, there's been a lot of talk at KU about whether or not classes should be moved online or stay in person. Despite some reports saying that students overwhelmingly want to return to in-person classes, there's been numerous outlets that have criticized the university's plans for returning. In an editorial from August 19th by the University Daily Kansan, the UDK's editorial board writes that KU must reverse course on campus reopening. In light of all this, I'm inviting Chancellor Douglas Girard to come on our show to take a side and defend the university's reopening. Thanks again for tuning in. Keep putting up debates and arguments on Sidey.co and climbing up that leaderboard. For all of us here at Take a Side, I'm Jacob Polachek, and we'll see you next week.